Hello and welcome to my second Excel dashboard tutorial. As promised in my previous video, this time we'll be working with Google Sheets. As you'll soon find out, this lighter version of Microsoft Excel has many limitations and we'll have to figure out some workarounds to get by. What you can see on the screen now is the final product that we'll end up creating. Once again, this dashboard is interactive and all of the visualizations respond to any filters that we trigger. So without further ado, let's begin. First, let's talk about the dataset. I'm using a dataset about a Polish company's sales over a 6-month period. Note that this data is not representative of any real company and it isn't trying to imitate it. I've deleted all the irrelevant columns and I won't go into much detail about most of them, just the ones that have custom functions. The first one is called Weekday Helper. It is one of many workarounds for the lack of Google Sheets functionality. It simply displays the numerical value of a weekday, and here is its function. We'll use this column later to properly sort our visualizations. The second custom column is Order Returned. It simply looks at the Order ID tab and checks whether this ID has been returned in the returned order sheet. Normally, when working with Excel, I like to keep things organized and have separate sheets for separate functions, meaning that we'll have to create a sheet for our pivot tables and calculations and one for the dashboard with visualizations. However, when working with Google Sheets, this isn't always optimal, and having different pieces of information in separate sheets may limit the functionality quite a bit. However, the best way to demonstrate it will be to actually run into these problems. This way, I will show you how to properly address them when and if you do encounter them. First, let's quickly prepare our dashboard sheet. We first select all cells with Ctrl+A and select a fill color. For all of our visualizations, we'll use this palette of green colors, and for now, let's choose this second lightest option. Then, click View, Show, and disable grid lines. Now, let's create our first pivot table. First, we select the whole dataset. Then, we click Insert, Pivot Table. In Existing Sheet, we select Range in our pivot table sheet. Then we click OK and Create. For our first visualization, we will create a heat map, showing whether there are tendencies for certain weekdays to have more orders than others. For our tables rows, select cities, and for values, order ID, which we summarize by count of unique orders. To display the distribution of orders among different weekdays, we insert Order Weekday to column. However, now we run into a problem. We are only able to sort our values in ascending or descending alphabetic order, since the Order Week column contains plain text values. This is why we made an additional column in the beginning, displaying the equivalent weekday with a number. We place this field in columns once again above the original weekday field. We disable showing totals for both columns, and just like that, we are able to sort our heat map based on this numeric field. Last thing left to do is to simply hide our helper row. Also hide the other unnecessary row. Now we select the whole table, go to Format, Conditional Formatting. In the right toolbar, select Color Scale and change the default scale to Reverse. Now, the higher the value, the darker it is. We now copy and paste the whole table to our dashboard sheet. Let's add 2 additional rows above our table, to make some space for the name of this visualization. Next, we select the whole table and enable full borders. Also change the font style to Verdana. We'll stick with this style for our whole dashboard. Next, select the city and weekday fields and fill them with dark green, and also change the font color of these cells to light gray. Now, select all cells surrounding our heat map and change their color to a slightly lighter shade of green. We will use this method of boxing our visualizations for all of our charts. Then, decrease the width of the left and right border cells. All that's left to do is to add a name for our visualization. Easy enough, right? Well, not quite. Google Sheets doesn't have an intuitive insert function that Excel has. Instead, we have to draw our pictures in a separate canvas, adjust its shape and colors, and then hope that it fits our style well. If not, we have to redo the whole process. And this includes text boxes as well. Let me show you. Click Insert and then select Drawing. A separate drawing window opens up where we can draw our usual Excel shapes. We select text box and place it on our canvas. We adjust the text, its size and color, and for our visualization names, we'll be using Verdana style. We'll be using dark green color and size 18 font. After we're happy with our text box, we click Save and Close. Now imagine if we didn't like the color of our font. We couldn't simply change it from our toolbar. We'd have to delete the whole image and redo it again. Anyway, we end up with our desired text box and align it above our visualization. All that is missing is a custom icon, but we'll come back to this later in the video. Our second visualization will have 3 pie charts. For that, we'll need to create a separate pivot table for each one. First, copy and paste the first pivot table that we've already created. Then remove all the fields. In rows, insert customer segment. In value, insert sales. In Filter tab, insert product category and filter out the first category. Then select the table without the total amount, click Insert and Chart. It should automatically produce a pie chart. In the right side, we see a Customize tab. So let's go through each of its options one by one. We disable the background and border color to make our pie transparent. Then we increase the donut hole to 50% and make the border black. We select the slice value to be shown as percentage and adjust its font style and size. Next, we go through each slice and adjust its color to a different shade of green. Google Sheets doesn't have any gradient fill options, so we'll have to make do with what we have. We delete the chart title and disable the legend for now. Then we copy and paste this pie to our dashboard. Google Sheets doesn't have an option to save our chart settings as a template and reuse it for similar charts, so we'll have to work around that. First, we copy and paste 2 more pivot tables. For each table, we simply change the filter value so that all 3 values are being filtered out in each chart. Next, we make 2 more copies of our pie chart. For each pie chart, we'll have to manually specify the data range of our filtered tables. Then, we copy and paste our pie charts to the dashboard sheet and adjust their size to be similar to the original one. We add a bottom legend for our middle pie chart. This legend will serve its purpose for all 3 charts since we manually specified the slice colors, and they won't change. Then, we increase the size of this chart so that all the legend fields are in one line. Next, we prepare the box area around our 3 pie charts. Once again, we'll simply fill the desired cell range in a lighter shade of green. We readjust the size and position of all 3 pie charts so that they fit well into our box. Next, we create a label text box for each pie chart. Make sure that these text boxes fit well into the holes of your pie charts. If not, you'll have to redo the whole thing and change their size. I don't really like the black slice border color, so I'll change it to the same color as our boxes. And finally, don't forget to add the name of our visualization. For our bar chart visualization, we make another copy of our last pivot table. Put product subcategories to rows and sales to values. Make the values display count. Then, in our row field, we sort by the value field in descending order. In our neighboring cells, we refer to the top 5 categories and their values. Then, we click Insert Chart and change its type to bar chart. In the Customize tab, we disable the chart's background and border. In the Series window, we click Add New Data Point and select a shade of green as its color. We do this process for all 5 of our categories. We disable the legend and set the font style and size of our horizontal axis values. Since we don't want the vertical axis points to be shown, we simply drag the bar chart's left border over it. Then, we disable the major grid lines. Finally, we copy and paste our chart into the dashboard sheet. One thing I forgot to do is add the data labels. Right-click on the chart, click Chart Style, Series, and in the bottom select Data Labels. Set their desired size and style. After that, we simply draw the box around our visualization and add a title. Our next visualization will display the amount of returned orders. For that, we create yet another pivot table. For rows, select Order Returned, and for values, select Order ID twice. Both of these value fields should be set to count unique. One should have the normal value, the other displays the percentage of column value. Once again, we prepare our visualization box by filling the desired cells with lighter shade of green. After that, we merge several cells together, and in the Function tab we place an equal sign. Then we come back to our pivot table sheet and refer to the total amount of orders and click Enter. Then we format the merged cell to fit our style. We do the same process for other two numbers as well. One will display the total amount of returned orders, the other percentage rate of returns. Finally, don't forget to specify what these numbers represent. The next visualization will be the most difficult to create. As promised in my last video, I will show an alternative way of creating map charts in Google Sheets. Although this software has a built-in map chart function, in my experience it is rather unreliable and clunky to use. For this method to work, I went to Google and searched for a transparent map of Poland. I saved the image on my device and copied it, and then I pasted it. Before moving on, let me briefly explain what our next steps are going to be. Basically, we will have two images on top of one another. The first one is our map. The second one is a bubble chart, where each bubble represents a city, and the bigger the bubble, the bigger the desired value in that city. In our case, it will be profits. Now that we've fit the map on our dashboard, we know the exact dimensions of our bubble chart, so we can simply work on top of it. So, let's just jump in. We first create a pivot table with cities for rows and profits for values. Then we copy and paste the city column in the neighboring cells. Our next two columns will be the X and Y positional coordinates for our bubbles. The next column is for color, and the final one for values. In the color column, just write numbers 1 to 4, and in the value column, refer to the pivot table's values. The X and Y columns will contain numbers that will determine the relative positions of all bubbles. I have prepared the exact relative numbers for our particular cities, so I will just paste them in. Then we insert a chart and change its type to bubble. As always, we make the border and fill transparent. We adjust the text and font style of our bubbles. We delete the chart title. We set the colors of each of our bubbles to a different shade of green. We disable the legend. Since we won't be using the vertical and horizontal axis labels, we simply drag the chart to fill the entire box. And finally, we disable both vertical and horizontal grid lines. We copy our map and paste it on top of our bubble chart, so that we can adjust the bubble positions accordingly. When we're happy with the size of our chart, we copy and paste it onto our dashboard sheet, and then we reposition it on top of our original map. I would like to increase the size of each bubble's labels and reposition it above the bubble. We can do this individually for each bubble, however, as you'll find out, it is a rather tedious task. We temporarily move both of our images away and refer the four bottom left cells to our original pivot table to display the city names and their values. If we want to change the format of the number displayed, it is best done in the actual pivot table. In this case, I want to display the euro currency. All that's left to do is to change the formatting of these cells, bring our map back to its original position, and to add a name text box for our map chart. For our line chart, we once again create a pivot table. For rows, we insert order date. For values, we insert sales and profits. Change the formatting of both values to show euro. Select the whole table, disable showing total values, and insert a chart. Change the type of chart to line chart. Disable background and border fill. Delete the chart title. In series, select each line individually and change its color. Sales to green, profits to dark gray. Disable the legend. Change the font style and size of both axes, and specify the minimum and maximum values of the vertical axis. We do this to avoid any errors when changing our dashboard filters. Finally, we disable the horizontal grid lines. Then we are ready to move our chart to the dashboard. Add a couple of additional columns to our dashboard and shape the box of our line chart. Then readjust the position of the chart, and as always, don't forget to add the name of this visualization. For our final visualization, create one last pivot table. For rows, select product subcategory, and for values, select profits. We sort the table by the profits column in descending order. Disable totals and insert chart. Change its type to horizontal bar chart. As always, we disable the background and border fill, delete the title, and now comes the ugly part. We must change the color of each bar manually. We go through them one by one and select a different shade of green for each. At the bottom of Series tab, we select Data Labels and click on Inside End. Then we adjust the formatting of these labels. We disable the legend and delete the title of the whole chart and the vertical axis. We adjust the font style and size of the vertical axis and drag the whole chart to the bottom so that there is no visible horizontal axis. Then we move our bar chart to the dashboard. As always, we select the cells of our visualizations box and change their color. Then we adjust the shape and position of our chart. When we're happy with the size of our bar chart, we move it away and merge several cells in the bottom right corner of our visualization. We will display the total sales and profits in these cells similarly as we've done in our bottom left box. Write the equals sum function and select the sales column that we used for our line chart. Change the formatting of this merged cell and repeat this process for the profits column. No need to navigate to the other sheet since I know that the profit column is next to the one we're currently using, so I'll simply change the letter of the column inside the function. And of course, don't forget the name of this visualization. One thing I would like to add are custom icons to each of our chart boxes. However, neither Google Sheets nor its drawing canvas has these elements. One way of solving this problem is to create these icons in a separate Excel document and just copy and paste them on our dashboard. I open a fresh Excel document, navigate to Insert and click Icons. I write the name of my desired icon, change its color, copy it, and paste it into my dashboard. Then I redo this process for all remaining visualizations. Our final part will be adding the slicers. If you haven't watched my other videos, slicers are powerful tools that act as intuitive filters for all the pivot tables and their connected charts. Once again, Google Sheets version of slicers is extremely limited and needs some workarounds to work properly. I'll show you how to work with that. We first navigate to our dataset sheet. Click on any of the table's cells. In the Data tab, we select Slicer. We then copy and paste it to our dashboard. Click Edit Slicer and select any column you would like to filter. I will select City. If I use the slicer and select some specific cities, only our heatmap seems to react. This is because our heatmap isn't really a chart, it is just a pivot table with custom conditional formatting rules. If we copy and paste this slicer to our pivot tables sheet, we see that all the pivot tables and visualizations in this sheet react correctly, meaning that Google Sheets Slicer only works for the pivot tables that are on the same sheet as the slicer. I think you may guess where this is going. We will have to copy and paste all of our pivot tables to the dashboard sheet. We first create some additional columns to the right. Then we go to Pivot Tables and select all of the cells containing pivot tables. Then we copy and paste these cells to our dashboard sheet. Our heat map's conditional formatting rules are not working properly. Select the table and click Conditional Formatting. In the Color Scale tab, select Apply to Range and delete all the ranges there. Then, click Apply to Range again and select the whole table once again. It should work properly now. Finally, we'll need to readjust the data ranges of all of our charts. Click on the first Doughnut chart and go to Chart Setup. In the Data Range tab, select the relevant pivot table in this sheet manually. Simply scroll right and select the range and click OK. We make sure that the slicer works as intended now. Now, rinse and repeat for all the remaining visualizations. We test the slicer to see if it works properly for all of our visualizations. Then we change the formatting of our slicer to better match the aesthetic of our dashboard. Next, we make 3 more additional copies of the slicer and change their filter columns to the ones that interest us the most, and once again make sure that all of them are functioning properly. I also want to add a rounded border for our slicers. We return to our previously created Excel worksheet and insert a rounded rectangle. I want to get the exact color used in our dashboard, so I go to Custom Fill Options and copy the hexadecimal color code. I then go back to my Excel sheet and paste this fill code. Then it's just a matter of cutting the shape to our dashboard and readjusting its size. And of course, let's not forget to add our company's logo. We use our Excel sheet for this task once more. I would like to thank you all for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm planning to add more similar content in the future. If there's any other Excel related topic you would like me to address, please let me know in the comments.